Yeah, so hi, my name is Bart, and I'm a graduate of Politics and International Relations from Dundee University. I did a wee internship with Cherry before and did some talks about international coffee trade and water privatization and things like that. And today I would like to talk to you about social media revolution. It's quite an interesting topic. It's quite a big one as well. So I have only half an hour, so I will try to keep it nice and easy. It's early in the morning still, so there's no point going too hard on you guys. I forgot to do a content page, so sorry for that. But as I said, it'll be nice and easy. I'll just basically try and show you the scale and unprecedented growth of social media and the way it impacts our lives. And then I'll just basically give you some real-life examples and hopefully come with you to some conclusions at the end. I'm not going to go into things like which might seem important for obvious reasons, like Occupy movement or Arab Spring, where social media obviously played a big role. But I really want to focus on social media as a phenomenon and how it can be used by all of us for big things, I think. A lot of my presentation is based on this book of Eric Coleman. He's one of, or the messiah of social media. This book is really good. There's a lot of marketing in it, but not like very heavy, really easy. So if you have any interest in social media whatsoever, I highly recommend it. It's really good, really approachable. And I do agree with the guy when he says that social media is the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, just think about it. It's, at the moment, there's estimated 1.6 billion people around the world connected to the internet. So that's like, well, 1/6 of population, global population, so that's enough, I guess. But the number one activity on the web is social media. It started in 2003, arguably with MySpace, and since then, in just 10 years, it grew to unprecedented levels. I mean, just Facebook, just recently, Facebook reached over 1 billion active users. YouTube, you all probably know Google, right? Not sure how many of you know YouTube is the second largest search engine on web, with 73 hours of video uploaded every minute. So that's quite mind-blowing. It would take some 16,000 years to watch all of it, and that obviously grows. Twitter has 22.5 million active users with an average of 5,700 tweets per second. Now the record was 143, just over 143,000 a second. So if you think about it, that's really mind-blowing. But it's just numbers, and I could just as well say a lot, right? Millions and millions. But I came across really interesting statistics as I was doing research for this talk, and it's basically the speed that it took for every media to reach its first 50 million users. And radio, for instance, let's start easy, and that took 38 years. So 50 million. It's like 1.5 size of Polish population, right? So that's like a medium European country. And it took relatively long, 38 years, to get 50 million users. Then you got TV, that took, 13, so less than half the time. Then you have internet, only 4 years, yeah? So that's pretty quick compared to if you think about radio, that's basically in the air, and then internet takes all the cables and infrastructure to get it to people. But it has, you know, this is unprecedented growth on its own. And then you have Facebook that took less than a year to get 200 million users. So that gives you a bit of a perspective how things you know, speed up. And this obviously affects every aspect of our lives, from entertainment through business, job markets, you know, politics, and even education. And these quotes, I would just like to read them quickly because I think they really capture the scale of this. And it is estimated that a week's worth of New York Times contains more information than a person was likely to come across in a lifetime in the 18th century. So this is just one newspaper. Think of all the newspapers, all the magazines we have, and then there's just this one. And in a week's time, there's more information in that than a person would learn in his or her lifetime. And then, so social media, this leads us to this conclusion that social media is experiencing a shift that is allowing millions of people to receive information at a rate never experienced before, and it's really hard to argue with that. Now, before I move to the next slide, I would just like to ask you guys, how many of you is on some sort of social media, anything? Could you just raise your hands? Okay, so nearly everybody. Facebook? Okay, again. Twitter? Okay. Google Plus? Not so many. And maybe YouTube? Accounts on YouTube, yeah, well, there you go. So YouTube didn't really start as social media, but recently has increasingly became one. There's obviously a trend to follow. So this is not really surprising. If there's, I'm just going to speed this up. But basically, I know there's a lot of numbers in here, but this is the pattern that I just wanted to show you. And it's pretty simple. 50% of the global population is under 30 or around 30, so that's what we call millennials. It's basically people, IT literate people who use computers and internet on daily basis. And 96% of those are already on social networks, so this is something reflected just a minute ago. 48% of 18 to 34s check Facebook right after they wake up. So 57% of people say that they talk more on Facebook than in real life. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of criticism towards social media for that, but I'll just leave that till the end. 53% recommend goods online, and now that's quite important. 90% of consumers trust peer reviews, while only 14% trust advertisement. And I think this is really important because this is something that, you know, it influences corporations and big companies to move on. You probably heard about decline of newspaper advertisement, and that's basically the bread and butter of our newspapers, and why newspapers increasingly move to internet and online advertising. It's, as Eric Coleman mentioned before, said, this is word of mouth on digital steroids, and it really is like that. And this is a trend that cannot be, and I think that 14%, that's something I am personally very happy about, because I am very, well, negatively passionate, if you could say that, about advertising. I really I have my own opinions about the whole advertising industry, but it really shows that we are no longer, we learn to see through advertisement, and it doesn't appeal to us anymore. We skip advertisements, although we are bombarded with it everywhere. We learn, we kind of learn to live with it and ignore it. But this forces corporations, which this is actually a topic that I wanted to make a talk about initially, because I think that corporations are the single most powerful entity in our society. They have the most money, the most resources to exercise effective power, effective influence politically, commercially. And very often it's not a direct power. They do it in a covert way from behind the scenes, and we don't even know that we are so many times manipulated or influenced by that power. So as I said, this trend is, it's undeniable. It's increasingly recognized by all corporations and their marketing departments. As James Farley from Ford said, you can't just say it, you have to get the people to say it to each other, because the media before, like TV, radio and all that, it was like a one-way street. It was just a communication channel, and you could shout at people and hope they hear you. Here you have a network of people, connected between each other, and it's basically a conversation. So and you can plan it to some, like when you plan a marketing strategy for social media. You have to plan it well, and you have to put enough resources in it, obviously, and enough thought. But you can't control every aspect of it, and you can't control the whole of it as you could before. So this changes the paradigm completely. As I said, big corporations now put a lot of money, silly amounts of money and resources in this. But because there's not that much control compared to before, marketing campaigns can go bad at times, as it happened with Qantas luxury campaign. That was a marketing campaign of Qantas. It's like Australian Airlines, and basically what they did is that in November 2011 they launched a Qantas luxury social marketing campaign, which just basically aimed at accentuating the positives about the service and the company itself. But it was poorly timed. It was just after a fallout with the unions, and a lot of bitterness going around, and basically clients, instead of doing that, focusing on positives, they replied with a torrent of abuse. Like for instance, I'll just quote a couple of comments and tweets. There was the one. Basically, clients were asked to say what Qantas luxury is for them. And one reply was, Qantas luxury is a nice pair of shoes, so I can walk across the terminal to another company. The other one was, Qantas luxury is a massive executive bonus while workers starve and your former customers choke. So this was a huge embarrassment for Qantas. But not only for Qantas, because all big companies share this experience. Companies like Coca-Cola, Wellworth, or Coles, just to name but few. But this is basically big corporations doing harm to themselves with not enough planning, not enough strategy. But there's also, if you can just look at this is I love this story. Maybe some of you heard of this. This is a website, Shell's Arctic Ready website. If you can just have a quick look at it and tell me, maybe somebody can tell me what's wrong with it. Does anybody see something unusual? Can anybody tell me what's... Yeah? Nobody? Okay. So basically, it's fake. This is a fake website. It was put on by Greenpeace and Yes Man, environmentalist groups you probably heard of. It cost them 10,000 to make, but this was a public relations disaster for Shell. You can still look it up if you put in Google, if you put Arctic Ready, Shell Arctic Ready. This actually comes up before Shell's website, it's well thought out, elaborate, and it was followed by a fake Twitter account and even a fake press conference. So a lot of people, they fell in it, and it basically what it did, its aim was to parody Shell's effort to start drilling in the Arctic. You probably heard about it. It's quite contentious, and that's what it basically was. It was a parody, asking people to generate their own fake Shell ads. So just a couple of here. Like, some say catastrophe, we say opportunity, let's go. Or birds are like sponges for oil. And this was even though you might find a bit funny, but it was extremely difficult to manage for Shell because there was no way of properly addressing this, because whatever they did, whether they addressed it or just ignored it, people would hear about it, and it would be just damaging to the general reputation of the company. And then even from the legal point, it's social media and internet is such a gray area that it's really hard to sue people for something like this, especially since Twitter and Facebook, they said they allow parody websites. There's nothing wrong from the legal standpoint why they shouldn't. So you can see this is basically activist groups coming together and using social media and internet for advancing their causes and spreading awareness or whatever the cause is. But again, as I said, this is 10,000 pounds worth of operation, and it took a lot of collaboration and planning. So this is just one way of using social media. Here's something maybe slightly more interesting, because it's just one guy who took on British Airways on his own, and it was Hussain Saeed. He bought 1,000 pounds worth of promoted tweets after BA lost his luggage, his or his dad's, I don't remember now, but they lost his luggage, and basically he couldn't get through, and he couldn't, their customer service, even online customer service, is only 9 to 5 when the business is 24/7. So obviously he was really annoyed. He got angry, and he did this, and he got 76,800 impressions of British Airways followers. So basically, you could assume 70,000 of British Airways customers saw this. So you can see, how damaging this was to its public relations. 14,000 engagements. So people who actually, joined the conversation. A lot of them, sharing their dissatisfaction with the service they were getting, and. So there was significant response. There was worldwide media and press coverage that led to CNN interview. Surprisingly, it took British Airways 8 hours to respond. So in that time, a lot has happened. I don't know if they changed anything, but it's a big lesson for British Airways. But what's really interesting is that this is just the one individual taking on a big corporation like British Airways, and this could hardly happen before. You could maybe try and sue them, but it would take a lot of time, a lot more money, effort, and it would just be not viable really to do this, if not impossible. Here it just took minutes or hours, and it was just so easy. It's absolutely unprecedented. Here are just some of the tweets. That's Hassan Sayed up the top. His tweets were very, very simple, just expressing his dissatisfaction basically. But again, this is he had to spend $1,000 for it, so not all of us could afford this. It's still quite expensive, not exactly maybe cost effective just to express your anger. So just moving quickly on, I would like to maybe mention this one story, one more, because this is really, the outcome was very nice. This is basically a story about 68 years old school bus monitor from America named Karen Klein. And as I said, she was a bus monitor, and she was bullied by some boys that used to go with her on the bus. And those boys filmed the bullying and posted it on their Facebook page. One of the movies was called "Making the Bus School Monitor Cry," and it's quite appalling. But somebody saw it, somebody downloaded it from Facebook and basically posted it on YouTube on their own private account, and spread the word about it, tweeted about it, and the video on YouTube, it went viral within a week, and after that, a campaign was launched to raise $3,000 just to let Karen go on holidays, within 3 weeks, the campaign raised $600,000. So quite a lot more. It wasn't expected that, but they managed to do that. And Karen used $100,000 from that to start her own foundation, Karen Klein Anti-Bullying Foundation, that basically aims at combating bullying across America. And this is just this is also quite unprecedented from media point of view, because again, this is just, there's no money involved in this. This is just a single act of kindness. Somebody just felt compassionate and just basically uploaded the video, and that kind of began something bigger that eventually ended with this, with a foundation, and significant amounts of money coming from just ordinary people. So, as you can see from all those examples, social media really enables us to do something never heard of before. With just a few clicks, we can really make a difference, and this goes to things like I mentioned before. I didn't want to go too much into it, like Occupy movement. You all probably heard that there's a lot of well, I guess Occupy movement would never happen if it wasn't for internet, for sharing things online, for social media, the way people connected and organized. It also played it also played a big role in Arab Spring. I didn't want to go into it too much because there's again a lot of debate about how effective was it, what really did it change, but there's no arguing it's absolutely undeniable that, first of all, corporations around the world are now waking up to power of the social media. And surveys have shown, Forbes, for instance, proved that corporations are increasingly seeing social media as a risk and looking at the issues like these that I just mentioned here. But politics and business apart, I think that really what it comes down to is that we are really lucky to be a part of such an interconnected generation. And we do have a power to inspire and share and connect with the rest of the world in a way that was never seen before. And this is basically what social media enables us to do. And I personally hope that it will grow. There are obviously a lot of issues that need, addressing or discussing, like privacy, addiction. There's estimated 350 million people with something that's called Facebook disorder addiction. It's true, and it's actually a mental, but there's some 6 different things to it. But so there's obviously issues that need addressing, and the debate needs to continue. But I hope that this will only grow, and personally, I can't think of any really limits. We just need to keep an eye on it and make it and keep it free, and just think of the ways that we can really use it. Because my final maybe conclusion would be that really, whatever you think about social media, whether you're for it or against it, or you don't like what it does to society, thing that I mentioned before, that people start to talk on internet or social media more than in real life. Really what social media comes down to is technology. It's only that, it's technology, and it's up to us how we use it. And as I hope I showed you, it's really up to your creativity what you do with it. It's a tool given to you, and we should be glad, we should be grateful for it. And I'll just end with this wee thing maybe you heard about. It's how how profoundly this can influence people, and it actually influenced one Egyptian family or father to commemorate the part social network played in revolution. And basically he decided to name his daughter Facebook. They considered naming her Twitter, but after a short consideration, they decided maybe Facebook be better. Mark Zuckerberg was publicly thanked for by Egyptians. I guess that's it. So thank you.
I wonder where you would stand on policing such things like Facebook, and because it's obviously such a big thing that it can work really well in things like campaigning against bullying, but what about things, like the SDL and the EDL, and even promoting pages against violence against women? Do you think that should be policed, or is that okay?
Well, I mean, this is this debate that needs to go on, and personally, I think that, internet should stay free, but only to some extent. And like with real life, people should take responsibility for what they say. So if what they say is harmful, or damaging, to anybody, then some kind of responsibility should be taken. And what you're saying, it's like basically it's a freedom of speech, and I think internet as social media, it reflects real life relationships. It should also it also reflects real life, and and I think that the same rules should be to some extent. I mean, nobody should be stopped from or limited in expressing their views, whatever their views are, as long as they're not hurting anybody. So I think it's just common sense. But yeah, I mean, there was this thing about Twitter recently. There was this new campaign, anti-bullying campaign on Twitter, and basically I think that that's a reasonable approach when you just put a report or panic button, that when something like this happens, it can be easily reported, and then certain authorities or whoever that's responsible for it deals with it in an appropriate way. And I think that's probably the best way of approaching it. But as I said, this is an ongoing debate, and it can develop further and should be continued. Right.
Would you say that this new revolution of social media is something to actually be worried about, or would you just simply say it's a new way of adapting?
So would be social media revolution something to be worried about? No, I don't think so. There's maybe certain aspects of it that we should be concerned about, like for instance privacy, because even though some 90% of people are concerned about privacy online, only I think approximately one third doesn't know, is not aware, or just doesn't know how to use privacy settings that you have in your, in your internet browser, whichever it is, or your social media. And that's something to be concerned about. That's something, that obviously needs improving, and people should know about this because, this is a big thing. But in its own, I think that, social media it really only empowers us to do certain things. And again, it's just technology, so on its own, I don't think we should be scared of it. We should just embrace it. Okay. Right. Well, oh my. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Isn't it quite ironic that social media is produced through or produced to attack corporations, when in fact it's the software and technology is held by corporations, Microsoft, Apple, etc. One day we're going to reach a critical mass where, the corporations are going to discuss with each other, and they're going to, organize a ban of this material reaching, devices. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I mean, that's something I'm concerned most about because, like I mentioned, freedom of speech, and corporations having all this power and resources, and really, as you said, it's quite ironic, yes, because it's on one hand, but, there's like, it's very hard position for big corporations to be in at the moment because, first of all, they can profit and benefit on this because it gives them, at the very basic level, this social media gives them direct access to a specific audience, right? So it changes the paradigm, but if they do it right, they can actually benefit on this. But also, as I shown from the example, it can be very damaging to them. So it's very difficult, I think, for them to balance these things out. But again, like I said, this is an ongoing debate about the freedom of speech on the internet. And I think that this is something that, we have been given this. Social media is a kind of like a gift, something to appreciate. But we also, I think that we have responsibility to protect it. So, keeping an eye on this and keeping, the conversation, the discussion alive, and reacting to all those changes, It's like, if I can just give you a short example, it's like, it might not be as, it's not exactly social media, but it's very similar concept is like with Xbox One. I don't know if any of you heard about this, but there's a new Xbox coming out, or has it already come? I'm not sure, but yeah, there's Xbox One and PlayStation 4, whatever. And Xbox, Microsoft, something you mentioned, Microsoft basically wanted to bring new things in, like, they wanted to limit the distribution of games, and they wanted to limit access to games. So if you for instance, if I bought a game now, I can go to my friend and I just chuck it in and just play with him on his sofa, right? They wanted to make it much more limited, so everybody has to buy their own copy, and not only that, you have to log in to your Microsoft account every day, otherwise you lose access, right? And this backfire backfired so heavily that they had to drop it. They had to back away from this because people wouldn't have it, and they realized that they won't make money, they won't make enough profit on it, and that's really probably the only thing that appeals. The strongest argument towards or against corporations is the profit. And when they realize, that people don't like what they're doing, they have no other choice but to comply. Otherwise, they would just go broke. So yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we
Yeah.
have to move on to the
All
next
right.
speaker.